I just set the boundaries for the next strip, and I can schedule a time, and then once it hits that time the next day, it pretty much opens the gate and they can move to their next strip.
Well, today we're with Dr. Derek Brake, our beef nutrition specialist for the Division of Animal Sciences, and his graduate student, Emma Bauer.
What we're really trying to figure out is how to best utilize annual forage-based systems into crop ground. In Missouri, we got 10 million acres of crop ground that a lot of times isn't grazed, and we see that as an excellent opportunity to enhance the value of a lot of calves that once weaned leave our state, and we lose some of the revenue from that. And so, one of the biggest barriers to that, or to utilizing some of that crop ground, is the access to water and fencing. And so, as part of this project, in not only just trying to measure differences in animal gains, but we're also trying to measure or evaluate how well we can use some virtual type of technologies with fencing. And specifically, all the cattle that are out here on this project are all equipped with a halter, is the manufacturer, which is a virtual fencing system that connects to a tower wirelessly, and newer models now actually connect via satellite using the Starlink system, which allows producers to manage how their cattle graze remotely. So it's not uncommon for Emma or myself to change where these cattle are moving throughout this field from miles away at about any time of the day right now. The tower, which the model that we have out here is actually the older model, so it uses the tower. That tower covers about a linear mile. It really depends on the geography of the location, and they're really looking for connectivity. But halter in particular, I think, has overcome a lot of that barrier, because with this newer satellite technology, they can actually, anywhere you can get a satellite signal to Starlink. One barrier for some of the virtual fencing technologies, which the tower has overcome, is where you have inconsistent cellular service. There's other manufacturers who use cell signals. The tower gets around that by finding a location where it can connect remotely to the internet and then push via a Wi-Fi signal to this system. But the newer versions of this same technology that you see on the cattle out in this field are actually connecting themselves, each collar, directly via the Starlink system, which has expanded coverage compared to most cellular networks. So this project in particular uses halter, but we're also interested in a lot of other manufacturers. Sure. We've been able to work collaboratively not only with halter but Monil, which is also a new it's a Norwegian company entering into the United States. So we've got experience throughout the beef research and teaching farm with at least both of those, and currently there's about 5 separate companies that are active in this space across the country.
And a rough idea on the cost per head?
The current price structure for the halter system that you see on the calves out in this project's $72 per year per collar subscription. In this tower system, more specifically, it's $4,800 one-time cost for the tower, and there is a month-over-month internet connection fee.
Sure.
I think that runs right around $40 a month. Emma has GPSed this pasture out here, and the strips that we're using a forward and back strip grazing system in this trial, and I'd say that we're probably somewhere in the neighborhood of our accuracy is within inches of what we're shooting for. Quite frankly, it's performed to a degree of accuracy that I was pretty skeptical before we started using these. So we've been doing this project for a little bit more than 5 weeks right now, and anybody can go through out here and look around. That's part of the reason why we're doing this. We'd like to figure out things that translate into the real world pretty well. It uses a training-based system, and so there is an electrical e-pulse that's involved when the animal goes out of its barrier. Before it does that, there's auditory cues that the animals get pretty adept at. So as they approach a barrier, then they're typically alerted that through sound that they're approaching that barrier, and then if they can continue past that, they'll receive an electric shock until they return to the allotted area. The only thing we really did from a training standpoint is we put them into an enclosed system, which it is important to understand that the virtual fences that we're using here are not intended as a barrier fence or as an external fence. What they are intended for is as an internal fence. So if you were going to increase your stocking rate by decreasing an allowable area, then this essentially replaces your polywire.
Yeah.
Get improved forage utilization. It's not to a point yet where it's really designed to replace maybe your 5-strand barb or your woven wire that's up next to the interstate. And so what we've done from a training perspective on these animals is we put them into a location where there is a solid fence. We did that on one of our 10-acre pastures at the Beef Research and Teaching Farm. We create a barrier that's a couple feet off of that, so that allows the animal to physically associate with it when it's first collared, and then as they get trained to that, a lot of times they'll respect it. And so we certainly didn't see a whole lot of issues when we moved them from the training pasture onto this pasture. But I wouldn't say we did a very intensive training regimen at all. And I only say that from the standpoint of with that type of training protocol, we had no failure rate whatsoever. So all of these calves, we wouldn't have had to haul anybody back.
That's great.
So
Emma, tell us, you move it every Thursday, right?
Yes, I move them every Thursday at 9 a.m.
And how do you do that? You do it on your phone?
Yes, so I open up the app that goes with these collars, and I just set the boundaries for the next strip, and I can schedule a time, and then once it hits that time the next day, the cattle, it pretty much opens the gate and they can move to their next strip. So there's a boundary on the back side too,
Okay.
so they're only allotted the new strip of forage for each
But
week.
now, if you didn't have enough waters, you could do that though. But they could always they could always go backward, but couldn't go forward.
Yeah, so with this system, you could really make the strip any size, shape that you wanted to. You could also make just an alleyway that goes back to where your water source is if you wanted to.
Really? So you can really get that configured how you want to.
Yep.
Well, I guess keep thinking about this. If you're grazing in the wintertime and you've got frozen ground where you can't move your polywire, this comes in great, doesn't it?
Yep.
yeah, this would work just fine under those conditions.